We are back with another episode of Tiernan's Tea Time. This is your host, Tiernan McCarthy Kenny, and we have another action-packed full MMA pod. Probably actually we'll get into a little basketball at the end, but for a real, kind of just a real update. Nothing, we're not going crazy. But the great Henry Cejudo has now unretired for the second time. The second time in 4 years. So 4 years ago, he beat this guy named Cruz, UFC 249, and decided to retire in the octagon. This was also during the pandemic, so think nobody is in the crowd. There is no crowd, so he's just in an empty octagon, retiring. Not really the greatest thing. It's also kind of at a weird time for the UFC too. I mean, that's a big guy retiring during a pandemic where everybody's a little bit nervous, especially companies like that where now you got to be almost frugal because you don't know who's showing up, if people are going to actually watch this live stream or what it is, because your entire gimmick is getting people to buy tickets to go to your show. So a little weird time. I don't think Dana loved it. Whatever. He got his flowers. He got his 2 cents, talking in the octagon, all that stuff. Came back on his word. Fought UFC 288, which wasn't that long ago, against Aljamain Sterling. Lost. Wasn't that great of a loss, too. And then now, leading up to UFC 298, he's telling everyone and their mother, that he's going to retire if he doesn't get his hand raised. And I don't understand this. This is, I guess, a pretty common thing with a lot of fighters. Everybody wants to retire, keep saying they're going to retire if they don't get their hand raised. Why would you want to go out on a loss? And I think this is why everybody unretires, because who the fuck would like going out on a loss? Especially if you're a Hall of Fame guy like Cejudo is, a two weight class champion. I mean, he's an Olympic wrestler. Like he's got medals everywhere he went. He could lose. He can have a Tony Ferguson losing streak, and he's still going to be one of the greats. Same thing with Tony Ferguson, obviously. So it's weird. It's a little frustrating. Just I don't get it. Why does everybody do this? So he's telling everybody he's going to lose if he doesn't, or he's going to retire if he doesn't get his hand raised. Doesn't get his hand raised. Lost in probably his worst loss ever, I'd assume, without getting knocked out. Just got destroyed by Merab. Merab just ran circles around this dude and beat him at his own game. That's what was really the worst thing. And it seemed like he gave up. So lost the second fight, like I said, in a row, and didn't get his moment to shine in the octagon. And that was kind of the biggest thing up to debate. And Dana even commented on this and said, well, he got it last time. I'm not going to just give it to him again, especially this is Merab's night. Like, he's not taken away from this night, and things like that, which I totally agreed with. I thought that was ridiculous that he thinks that. And maybe that's why he unretired. And he didn't get the attention he wanted. Obviously, the loss stings, especially in that fashion. And now he's in a weird place. He's in a real weird place, and we'll see where he goes next. I mean, he came out with the YouTube video saying he can't go out like that, all this different stuff. And just weird. I don't know what his trajectory is going to be. I don't think he's going to be, after these last 2 fights, especially the last fight, he looked super slow. Mentally was not there. And he's in a stacked class, or division at least. Super stacked. I mean, he's ranked 6th in the division currently. Not bad, obviously. But you got Sugar Sean, you got Merab, you got Sterling, you got Corey Sandhagen, you got Peter Yan, and you got Cheeto, all ahead of him. Those are five real dudes ahead of him. And especially after a performance like the last, like I said, and even the one before that, I don't know if it's in the cards for him, man. I guess my advice, if anything, would be go back down to flyweight. Flyweight's a little up there, and he actually even came out and said he wanted to fight Moreno. So he's kind of already, I mean, he's already kind of on that trajectory, I guess. So I guess maybe he'd fight Moreno if he wins that. Maybe he'd try to get a title shot, something like that. I don't know. it's a little bit of a weird spot, but I feel like if he did fully switch back to flyweight and didn't take any other fights in bantamweight, then you'd absolutely get some flack. And I don't know if he wants to be there either. Don't know. But if we're talking about unretiring fighters, George motherfucking Masvidal. So he's officially coming back as well. He's actually somebody I was originally very excited for. Obviously, he's a big name, brings big fights, brings big cards, but he's also on a massive losing streak, and it's not looking so good for him either. So he lost 4 straight fights from 2020 to 2023. He lost to Usman twice, lost to Kobe, and he also lost to Burns. Not in the greatest fashion either. That's a lot to come back from. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously he says he's super confident in his ability, but after 4 straight losses like that, how can you still remain that confident? I don't know. Maybe that's a genetic thing, and I just don't got that. Don't get it. But he is definitely coming back. He even said that they were flirting for a UFC 300 bout. Just couldn't get it done. But the route that I don't like the most, that it seems like he's kind of leaning to, he keeps bringing up Nate. He's even going to his hometown, taking pictures in front of his gym, all this different stuff, talking major shit, trying to get something going. But now he's trying to go down this road of boxing, and he wants to box Nate. And I frankly don't like that. I don't think anybody likes that. I don't think anybody really wants to watch it. I think we would, just so we can talk about it. But I don't think anybody's really going to enjoy that. And I really would be upset if that's the direction he took it. I think what would be interesting, though, obviously besides a regular MMA fight and really do a clean rematch like they should, would be fighting, at least in the style, but in his own promotion company. Gamebred Bare Knuckle, baby. That's the way to go. And who better to do bare knuckle than Nate Diaz? That's the king of getting his face fucked up and bashed in. He'd be perfect. He's no Mike Perry, but he's right below him. I don't know. I thought that would be pretty interesting. I don't think it's going to happen. Obviously, I don't know how, imagine Dana was a fighter too, and Dana fought in the UFC, but if you're going to do a fight like that, you're not going to go to somebody who's competing, a competing company, right? I think it's either going to be, I think the best bet is either an MMA fight. I think the even better bet would be a bare knuckle fight. I think that would be the most entertaining. I think it actually is probably going to be a boxing match just because that's the one he's talking about the most. And honestly, I think I'm just not going to, I don't expect, I'm not trying to get my expectations up and or my hopes up. And I expect it to be the worst possible scenario, to be honest. And I think it's going to be a boxing match, and that is what it is. But on the topic of bare knuckle, I do want to get into his fight promotion company, Gamebred Bare Knuckle. And currently I'm recording this on Saturday, March 2nd, and I just watched their card tonight, and let me tell you, it was fantastic. There are some pros and cons, but it is fantastic. And I've wanted to dip my toe in the bare knuckle world. Excuse me, I'm about to drink a little Polar Lime. Please sponsor me. Seltzer's king. But I've been wanting to dip my toe into the bare knuckle community a bit, and I've been waiting for a Mike Perry fight or something like that, which I know is coming up, just because he's the most entertaining. He's a bad man. I've listened to a few interviews with him now. I like him to a degree, obviously, and it'd be interesting. But I'm not a big boxing fan. I like the element of boxing, especially when it's used in MMA, obviously, which is all the time. Just regular stand-up game or Muay Thai, things like that. But straight-up boxing, I think, is boring. I used to be a little more into it. The only time I really got into it was Floyd Pacquiao and McGregor Floyd. That was really it. Other than that, it was super long. Obviously, the rounds are super long. Everybody's strategy is kind of holding out until then. If it's a decision, it feels like the waste of a night. The cards take forever to go down. And I just don't think it's as entertaining. I mean, why? If an MMA fight was on and a boxing match was on, you're telling me you wouldn't watch one, the shorter fight, the more violent and deadly fight, the one that's not fixed, are most likely not fixed. Yeah, MMA all the way. I don't understand how people are still even boxing fans, to be honest. I feel like it's ridiculous, and it honestly looks like just a lower level MMA promotion. It's just terrible now, and I think the UFC is completely destroying them. And I think that's exactly what Gamebred Bare Knuckle is going to do to the bare knuckle boxing community as well. I think it's going to shrivel up because before, bare knuckle boxing was the most violent sport you could do. 100%. Obviously, MMA, there's so many different elements, ground, whatever, different martial arts all intertwined, where you could walk out with a broken leg and a broken orbital bone. Where boxing obviously is not like that, but the element of bare boxing or bare knuckle boxing with no gloves, dude, you do one jab and that person's face could be just torn open. If you watch some of these fights, it's like they don't have to do much and their face just caves. If you watch the Junior Dos Santos fight tonight, the heavyweight bout, holy shit. Like, he just had a couple jabs to his nose. His nose is destroyed. He has a clear, which he had a bit before, but a clear dent in his nose and profusely bleeding for at least like 10 minutes. And that's off a few jabs. So it's a completely different game in that aspect where just a couple punches, it looks like you already did a 5-round fight. But now you're upping the ante with bare knuckle MMA. So you get everything MMA offers, but you now are adding bare knuckle. Pretty astounding. So I'm already telling you which one's better. I mean, obviously you got to choose for yourself, but I'm telling you, you got to check out this bare knuckle MMA. So I watched their full card tonight. Actually, I missed one or two fights just in the beginning. But it wasn't all amazing. I mean, I'll give you my pros and cons first. Let's just do that. So my pros, free streaming, fantastic. No pay-per-views, anything like that. Most violence you can imagine. Like I said, the knuckles just tear through skin. 1 to 2 shots will just cut up and blow up your opponent's face. Another seltzer shot. It's a smaller weapon, obviously, and this is something people don't think about. Same thing with boxing headgear. Like, if you got gloves on, it makes your hands bigger. So you have bigger weapons compared to your regular hands. And then when you wear sort of headgear with boxing, different things like amateur fights, it makes your head easier to hit. It's a bigger target. People don't think about that when you're adding padding. It makes it bigger. It makes it, I don't know. It makes it a lot bigger sometimes for your head. It makes it a lot easier to hit, things like that. So it's a smaller weapon, but it's a lot more damage. You're harder to hit other people, obviously, because your hands are smaller. And it's really hard to recover from. And if you watch some of these fights, people are exhausted way sooner than they would be in a regular MMA fight. One fight specifically between Brandon Jenkins and Tyler Hill, Tyler the Zombie Hill, who absolutely portrayed his nickname to a T the entire time. Second round is just dogging it, like, for real. And it's crazy when you see the difference. It really is. It's something you just have to watch. Another pro is it's quicker fights. They're usually quicker. Obviously, if it gets to a decision, it's the same length. 3 5-minute rounds, or if it's a championship bout, it's 5-minute rounds. But typically, we don't make it to the decision. Somebody's getting knocked out, or there's a stoppage, or somebody's getting submitted. So typically, they're a lot quicker. And that's entertaining. I like that the best because sometimes, I mean, I am tired right now. It's 11:47. My bedtime is usually around 11 p.m. But when I'm done with a UFC card, it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's easier for me to at least record now compared to after a UFC card, something like that. Usually I wait the next day. Fights are always a little more interesting because somebody looks like they're about to die. Compared to a UFC fight, I mean, typically too, a lot of people like, and one of my next things, I like the scrappy sort of people the sport attracts, which then ties into how it's more interesting because a lot of these guys want to get hit in the face and want to go at another person, just bash their fucking face in, where sometimes they're just different strategies with regular people who do regular MMA. So it's a little bit of difference, a little different personalities from people. It's interesting. I think this has so much potential. I think it can absolutely become a UFC-like entity. I mean, it would likely probably get bought out by UFC or something, and they would have it similar to like the Power Slap. I could see that, or they would do it themselves and compete. Probably wouldn't do that since they're close with Masvidal. But something, I'm sure they're going to have some sort of collab in the future as this gets bigger, and I think it should. Some of the cons, it's still so new. I believe it said I think this was their 7th card, but I thought he said it was their 10th card in his latest interview. So I'm a little confused on that, to be honest. But they still have a small roster. It's still new. And you think about it, UFC's about to do 299, and they're on 7 or 10. So they're very new into the game. Small roster. Not as much talent, obviously, because they haven't built up enough people. Streaming on Kick, awesome because it's free. Also can glitch out. And I actually missed one of the knockouts, which I was really frustrated with because it was a great fight. Was the co-main event. And I was pissed off. I mean, UFC kind of did that too. There was one, the Bryce Mitchell got knocked out by Elliott. Got destroyed. Of course, it glitches. I'm refreshing. I get back on. He's out. And same sort of thing happened tonight. But luckily, I got the replay, and I got the replay for a few seconds before that too. So it led up to the knockout, which was good. It was fine. But that's frustrating, and I think it's more. I mean, it's due to obviously you're streaming, but it's also how many people are on, how many people are on the chat, like things like that. So it's all factors which were frustrating. Like I said, not as much talent. And one thing that I didn't like, which is not necessarily a con for them, but the fighters, it seemed like for most of the night, were super buddy-buddy. Nobody was really pissed off about it. It was weird. And that might just be because they're still small. And obviously these beefs and things like that draw more attention, more money, bigger fights, things like that. Real promotion, and they just haven't kicked off the ground yet, and maybe they just don't think it's worth it. I don't know. But they're all giving each other props, slapping each other on the back, which is great sometimes. But sometimes I want a Conor McGregor in there to stir up the mix. So it's not a real fault or a con for Gamebred. But it was something I noticed that I didn't love. It just takes away a story element a bit. Whatever. That's kind of a stupid con, but so some of the fights I wanted to highlight. I mean, I'm gonna butcher this guy's name, but Marlon Gonzalez versus Anvar Boynazarov lasted 13 seconds. Anvar just fucking. Why am I just blanked? Knee to the face, knocked him out cold, 13 seconds in. Fight after that, fantastic. Brandon Jenkins, like I said before, Tyler Hill This one was just a real bloody match. And it was it was more of like a longevity. These two guys just killing each other. Nobody's fallen. Like I said, Tyler Hill, the zombie, ended up being in a knockout by Brandon Jenkins. You actually thought it was going to be the opposite. There were 2 times there where both of them full on, like probably would have stopped in a regular UFC MMA match. Probably would have been an early stoppage for either times these guys were wailing on each other, but they kept letting it go. And Brandon Jenkins, at the end of the day, Tyler Hill just got super exhausted, and Brandon Jenkins capitalized, and that's what he does. He just knocks people out. That's what he does. It was really a fantastic fight. 2 gladiators right there. Great fight. Who else? I'm going down this card. I mean, other than that, there were 3 other fights in between them. Jesse Ronson, Anthony, I'm going to butcher this, Njokuano, then TJ Brown, Joshua Weems, and then Carl Robinson, Henderson Ferreira. They were fine. Like, they're good fights. Some of them were a little more like, there were a couple there that were just sort of grappling, ground and pound, stuff like that. There were 1 or 2 submissions, I think, in between there. I think Ronson there had a submission. I think TJ Brown also had a submission. And then Ferreira won by decision. Again, they're not bad fights. They weren't super entertaining. They went for a pretty long distance. There wasn't any serious, like Ronson didn't walk away with any cuts. So it wasn't real deal fight. Super, like, unlike the 2 the co-main events, which were just a bloody mess. So they weren't bad, but I wouldn't highlight them much. Chase Sherman and Alex Nicholson, great fight. This was the co-main event, heavyweight bout. Huge weight difference. Sherman was a fucking offensive lineman. He's 6'4", 264 pounds, and Alex Nicholson is 223 pounds. And like Sherman said, he should be fighting a lightweight, but he's not. He's going up against heavyweight bouts, in heavyweight bouts. Really admirable. I don't know if I would do that, but you got it, man. You got it. He's a tough motherfucker. He had an interview before. He seemed like he's been fighting too long. If that's how I'll say that. But a great fight. Pretty evenly matched otherwise. I mean, both same height, same reach. It was really just a weight difference. And it showed because Sherman easily took him down. And even when he got him down, he got him in full guard. He was in Alex's full guard. He literally picked him up. He picked him up and put him down. And that's where it gets a little scary. I'm like, okay, like that's a big difference, man. I mean, that's 40 pounds. And Sherman's not like a fat guy at all, actually. He wears that weight really well. So I was actually super surprised. I was like, 264, Jesus Christ, he looks like he was 240. He wears it well. He's solid. He's pretty lean for that weight. So it's a big deal. That's 40 pounds of muscle. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's not like visceral fat. It's muscle. Really great fight. Like I said, Sherman got him on the ground, some grappling there, kind of tussled with him, but they both were trading shots. Alex Nicholson was in the game there. And you actually thought he was doing a lot better on the stand-up end. I was expecting Sherman to kind of control a little bit more, but, I mean, he ended up with a knockout. Major shot against him, just completely stunned him, dropped, and he just looked like he had those birds going around his head. Great fight, really great fight. And this kind of sets up for the next one, which was the first heavyweight title fight in Gamebred history against Junior Dos Santos and Alan Belcher. Junior Dos Santos was actually a UFC fighter as well. Great fighter, legend. This was an amazing fight. Only lasted 2 rounds. Junior Dos Santos, 250 pounds. Alan Belcher, about 233. So not a huge difference. Still a difference. And you can tell who wears it. Belcher's not. He's still jacked. But Junior Dos Santos looks huge. Really insane fight in terms of just these two just bloody messes, bashing each other's skulls in. There was some grappling there. Junior Santos actually almost got 2 submissions. He almost had a straight arm bar, and then he also, what was it? He also, it was a neck crank. Then he also had a neck crank on him that I actually did really think he was going to submit him. It was super rough. It looked like he was about to tap, but he got out of it. Ended up with a major knockout. I don't think anybody was really expecting that in the fashion they did. Massive left hook, left Allen stunned, and he was very upset. He gave him his good graces. Like I said, everybody was buddy, but he immediately was like rematch. He was kind of like Volkan's Topuria the other day, or a couple of weeks ago. Just immediate rematch. Crowd didn't love it as much. And then Junior Dos Santos didn't want it either. He wanted somebody else. My pick, why don't we see Sherman? That's only a 14-pound difference. Sherman, co-main event, won his fight by TKO too. Wasn't like it was a close decision. I think he absolutely deserves it. And I actually think he, too, was upset because he was yelling at Junior Dos Santos while he was on the mic, kind of being like, what the fuck, dude? I'm next. What's going on? I think that would be an amazing fight. I think who wouldn't want to see that? It'd be fantastic. 2 heavy-ass hitters, real big dudes, really strong guys, same height, almost the same reach, and not as big of a weight difference. I think it's perfect. Masvidal, cue it up. Next card. Or 2 cards, we'll see. All right, let's do a little transition because I do want to talk a little bit about the main card for UFC 299 because we are a week away, which is a little crazy. I keep imagining it so far away. Same thing with 300, but they're coming up. I mean, this is next week, and 300 is not that far after that. So, just briefly, want to discuss. I mean, you got Peter fighting, you got Gilbert Burns fighting, you got Kevin Holland, Dustin Poirier, and Sean O'Malley, obviously versus Cheeto. Then you got this is probably one of the best fights too. Is Dustin, obviously, since it's like, I don't know if it's a co-main event, but it's up there. I mean, obviously it's right before the main event. You got Dustin Poirier and Benoit Saint Denis, who is currently ranked 12th in lightweight. That's another stacked division. But he's a killer, and he's on the prowl, and he's coming up there. And he might, honestly, if he beats Dustin here, he might actually qualify for a title fight soon. So that's a fight I would definitely watch out for. I mean, it's not like who's not going to watch that fight. The Kevin Holland, Michael Page one's interesting. I'm okay with it. Kevin Holland's a bit streaky. Michael Page is new. It's gonna be fun, but it's a little like okay. Burns will be okay, and the Peter Yang Song Yadong fight is pretty good too. So it's a pretty stacked main card. Other than that, the prelims are a bit slim. Actually, when looking back at this card, I wasn't as hyped. I think it'll be great. I'm really looking forward, obviously, to Sean O'Malley and Cheeto. This is the real fight we've all wanted for a long time. Currently, Sugar is minus 218, while Cheeto is plus 180. I'm actually a little surprised that Sean is that high favored, but I think he should be. I'm definitely in the camp where I think the last fight was a little bullshit. I'm not saying I'm not going to go as far as Sugar does, where he's saying he's undefeated. You're not undefeated. But I do think it was a freak accident. Hit a nerve. His leg clearly was just dead and limp after that. It is what it is. It's a loss. I don't think it was the best loss. I think it's similar to when it's similar. It's not the same, but to like the Masvidal Nate Diaz fight, where it was like a doctor stoppage, where it's just like kind of a freak accident. He would have been able to keep fighting if it wasn't his leg like that. We obviously don't know actually what would happen, but I would put my money on he would have been fine. 2 killers, though. Cheeto's an excellent striker as well, with a pretty good ground game. And Sugar has stepped up his ground game as well, but this is going to be a striking bout. They're going for each other's throats. They both don't like each other. Cheeto's hungry. He wants that belt. He wants that belt. But I don't think he's going to get it. I personally don't think he's going to get it. I think Sean is going to defend his belt. First-time defense. And it's up into question. Obviously, I guess it's not. It's Merab next. It's Merab next. We all know that. Dana's pretty much confirmed that. Sugar didn't want to go down that route, but he's pretty much confirmed that. I think that'd be an excellent fight. We'll see, right? We'll see. So let's switch gears a bit. That's UFC 299. Obviously, I'm going to have a lot more in-depth review after next week, after it happens. So I apologize if I didn't go as deep in that, but I just want to let it play out a bit. I don't have much to say yet. So we'll talk more about it next week. But also tonight, history was made. LeBron with a layup for his 40,000th career point. The leader in points in the NBA. And it's going to be a tough week for me. All right? Everyone pray for me. These LeBron sexuals are going to be tweeting like crazy about how he's better than MJ. And with all my might, I'm going to not get into 17 Twitter fights this week. Okay? MJ's still the GOAT. Still the GOAT. Still the guy on both ends. Right? 6 championships. That's how it is. Right? Multiple scoring titles. Multiple defensive player of the years. All NBAs. All defensive NBAs. I think when you lay it out like that, it doesn't stack up well for LeBron. And obviously LeBron is the stat king just because he's been good and he's had this longevity. And that's it. He could have been probably mediocre and still would have gotten it just based on 21 years. Okay? MJ played for 21 years. It'd be a different story. All right? I think it's a little more complicated. And I just know I'm going to be a little frustrated looking on Twitter this week. But you got to mention that. I had to mention that. 40,000 points. It's a great thing. And I like LeBron in that sense. I respect LeBron. Okay? I don't want you to get it twisted. Nobody's ever done that before. And I think somebody's going to touch it because it's one of those things like I said that with Kareem. 38,000 points. I'm like, oh, no, I don't think anybody's actually getting to that. And somebody did. And I think it's going to be the same thing. I don't think anybody's touching 40,000. And somebody's going to touch it. Or however much he ends up with. 41 or whatever, 45 maybe. I think somebody's going to end up touching it. Right now, we're looking at Wemby, baby. But I don't think he's going to have that serious, like all seriousness. I don't think he's going to have longevity like that just because he's so big. Who knows, though? He has that different training regimen. Flexibility, mobility is just out of this world. He's been fucking fantastic, dude. Way better than we all could have imagined, I think. Well, maybe not some of us. For me, at least, way better than I could imagine in first year. I think we can say he was better than LeBron in his first year. Better than Jordan in his first year. Better than KD in his first year. Just how dominant he is on both ends of the floor. Like, he's seriously a serious contender for Defensive Player of the Year. And I'm kind of thinking he should get it. It's one of those things, it's one of this debate. Was I actually thinking about talking about this a bit, and we might as well get into it. I'm in the popular, it's not popular. I'm in the camp of, for whatever, it doesn't matter what really award it is. I guess the real only awards it would apply for is Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, things like that. Most Improved doesn't matter, Rookie of the Year doesn't matter. But with talent over team record, I understand why the team record is involved in the ultimate decision, because obviously if this guy is so good, he's got to lead his team to this, lead his team to that. But I also think it goes outside of that, right? Because if you look at Luka these past couple of years, he's up there. I'm not saying he should have won multiple MVPs. I'm not saying he's the best player in the league. Obviously, I think Jokic is the best player in the league. He is the best player in the league, no doubt. And he could have won. He should have won had a three-peat of MVPs. And LeBron in early 2010s as well. He could have probably won MVP every year. What I don't like is for that single, what I just said. Luka, for example, team hasn't done great, but he's been insane. Arguably one of the best players. There's an argument for best player, even though I don't think he is. But in scenarios like that, okay, just a freak of nature, going insane, putting up these crazy stat lines, making all this history. I mean, he just turned 25, right? I'm going to double check that because he is unreal at his age. I mean, has there ever been a player that good at his age? You can't tell me. Yeah, he's 25. He's 25. Who's been this good at 25? Who's like, he's not even technically in his prime yet. He's had literally, from the moment he's been in the league, he's been relevant and just a freak of nature. And he's not even a genetic freak, which is like a Wemby or a LeBron. Those are the cases where you typically see this level of play. He's been saying, and this guy hasn't gotten an MVP. Because his team isn't good. And that's what I don't like. And I like, same thing with Jokic. If his team was bad and he's still playing like this, he should get an MVP. And it's tough because there are so many good guys now. There's an argument for anybody, really, right? There's an argument for Tatum. There's an argument for Shea. There's an argument for Jokic. There's an argument for Luka. There's so many guys. So when it gets down to it, when it's like, all right, well, this guy's also that good and on this level, and his team is that good, he's got to get it then. But it's frustrating in certain years when it's clearly this one guy who's murdering everyone, but his team isn't as good, doesn't win as many games, and then he doesn't get it. And then you're like, what's going on? So same thing with the Defensive Player of the Year, which I'm going back to. With Wemby, his team's awful. Gobert's team's good. Gobert's team's one of the top in the West. And he's won multiple Defensive Player of the Years. He's that anchor, the defensive anchor on that team. Checks all the boxes. But Wemby has been insane. Leads the league in blocks per game. He's also gets a ton of steals. I think he's up there in steals as well in the league, which Gobert's not. And I think that is a factor. I think that should be I mean, come on. Like, I wouldn't then turn my eye on those two stats that really matter, almost matter the most, and just kind of put it on because his team's better. I just think that's ridiculous. Maybe I'm not articulating myself well, getting my point across, because I feel like I'm not. I feel like I'm not talking the best way, or explaining this the best way I can, but it's going to have to do at midnight. This is where my brain goes. So I apologize, but yeah, I don't know. Let me know if you feel that way too. I feel like I can't be the only one that feels that way, or at least doesn't I'm not comfortable with it. I get the rationale, but I'm not comfortable with it. And I'm not saying they should change it, but I feel like there should be a conversation. Because if Luka, like for real, if the Mavs don't go anywhere for the next 5 years, and Luka gets even better than what he is now, and doesn't have an MVP, I'm gonna stop watching basketball. Because that fucking guy needs to get an MVP at some point. I don't give a shit if his team's. I don't give a shit if he's on the Spurs. He's or the Wizards. Worst team in the NBA. That guy needs to get an MVP. He's better than literally everyone, probably except Jokic. And it's tough too because he's not as much of a team player, which is also okay. We're going to go on another thing right here. Very high usage rate. Very high usage rate player, like a Harden, like a Westbrook. I get it. People immediately go to they're selfish players. They're not team players. They can be ball stoppers. I get it. But these guys also end up with 15 assists on certain nights. At least 10 assists. I mean, he's averaging 8 right now, almost 9. Like, he wouldn't be getting a double-double every night, almost, if he wasn't passing the ball to his teammates and including his teammates. That's one of the things that Luka's fantastic at. And he's similar to Jokic in that sense, where his passing is just unbelievable. So, I also don't like that. I just think he's more of a gung-ho leader. He needs the ball in his hands because he's their main option. He can score anywhere on the floor. And also with his dribble isolation, he opens the floor up for people. Because who's not helping on Luka? This dude makes trick shots up the wazoo at fucking 5 miles an hour. So I also don't get that. Where this is also a strategy to help out his teammates and get them looks. Why do you think Tim Hardaway is so successful? Put him on any other team, he's not doing this. He'd most likely be some whatever team's 2 guard that just slept on for the rest of his career. Not really amounting to much. Kind of like a Kevin Huerter on Sacramento this year. That's exactly how I feel like Tim Hardaway would be without a Luka. So where does this come from? Why? How does somebody who's almost averaging a double-double in points and assists get equated to a selfish player? I don't know. It's a little frustrating. I'm trying to think right now of where I would put him best in the league. I honestly might put him 2. He's absolutely top 4. Has to go Jokic. It's got to go Luka. Got to go Embiid. And number 4 is tough. If you're basing it off of this year, basing it strictly off this year, I honestly would probably put Shea. And that's a huge jump because obviously the whole conversation was, is he a top 10 player? Shea a top 10 player? Yeah, he's a fucking top 10 player. He might be he's got to be top 5. No doubt. I'd probably put Shea, then I'd put Tatum. Yeah, I think that's how I'd go. Maybe then Curry, Booker. I think that's pretty solid. That's what I'm going with. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed. That's the end of the podcast. Let me know how you liked it. All podcast platforms, all social media platforms. We're on TikTok, Twitter. We're also uploading YouTube videos as well. Please go check those out. We're doing the full video podcast on Spotify as well. Only for Spotify and YouTube. Regular clips, 5 clips a week. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. Go check it out. Hope you enjoy. I love you all. I'll see you in the next one.